1:30, so we may as well get started. My name is Mandy. I'm a music teacher in Hong Kong, and I started flipping some of my classes several years ago because I was having a problem with not having full attendance or missing lessons or having kids who were English language learners and not understanding me the first 3 times I said something. And I was trying to find a way that would help them and it would help me catch up on everything so that I'm not constantly chasing after trying to get people caught up and stuff like that. So flipping comes in, it is a full philosophy, and we're not going to go into the full philosophy today because you can do like university courses on this. I did 1 course on it. I got my flipped learning certification for level 1, but there's I think 3 levels to it now. I won't ever go to level 2 or level 3 because you have to have a fully flipped classroom in order to get those certifications, and that's not something that I see myself doing as much. I pick and choose what's going to be most useful to flip, and I kind of go from there. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a little bit of information, and then we're going to create a flipped video. Who's got MacBooks here or iPads? Okay, who's on a Microsoft device? Okay, so when we're into the editing portion, all of my stuff is for iMovie because I've got a MacBook and it's free, so that's what I use. But there's, no matter what editing software you choose, they've all got very similar features. Okay? So, if you're interested in seeing me be very silly, as many of my students are, there's my YouTube channel where I put pretty much all of my videos. You've got resources on teachingroot.com. There's a flipped learning section, my email address, and Twitter. So have a think. What is the best use of your class time?
Hi, my name is John Bergman. I'm one of the pioneers of the flipped classroom movement. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the flipped classroom. A lot of people, when they hear about the flipped classroom, say, oh, that's just homework on videos and then worksheets in class. And though that could be it, the reality is it's about the best use of your face-to-face class time. Let me tell you a story. I was presenting on the flipped classroom to a group of educators, and these 3 teachers came up to me afterwards and they said, John, we're in. We want to flip our class. And I said, cool, so tell me, what do you guys do? And they said, we're the PE department. I looked at them and I said, what? The PE department? And they told me this story. I said, when you ask that question, what's the best use of your face-to-face class time? They told me, we want our students to move their bodies. And then they said this, we spend far too much time telling our students how to move their bodies. So they make these short videos so that they can maximize class time. You see, the key to the flipped classroom is maximizing the face-to-face class time. For 24 years, I was a high school science teacher. And in my science class, I was frustrated with not having enough time for my kids to do hands-on activities and also for them to get help on, I'll call it the hard stuff. You see, because what I was doing is I would send them home to do homework and they'd get stuck and they wouldn't have any help because their parents couldn't help stay on high school chemistry. And so when they went home, they couldn't do it. So of course, when we flipped the class, there was a lot more time for me, the expert, to help the student with their class. So for me, the way I answered that question as a high school chemistry teacher was I wanted my students to do more experiments and also to get help on the more difficult concepts. But then my PE teacher friends, they had a different answer to that question. What's the best use of your face-to-face class time? So I want to really encourage you to answer that question for yourself. What is the best use of your face-to-face class time? And as you answer that, I think you're going to come to the conclusion that it's not you standing up in front of your students and yakking at them, doing the lecture thing. Because you can move the direct instruction piece, if you will, the lecture, into the individual space where the students can watch them and consume them at the pace that makes sense to them. Haven't you all sat in a lecture room or a class and the teacher is going on and maybe even on, and maybe you're processing it, but then all of a sudden you look up and you go, you're trying to take notes and you look up and you're lost. What are you going to do now? You see, the nice thing about content on video is, of course, is that there's a pause and a rewind button. Because if you get lost, well, then you can go back and rewind. This was especially poignant for me when I was teaching in the flipped classroom, and my daughter, Katie, she was in my class, taking my class, the flipped classroom, and she was watching a video at home of me teaching, which, by the way, is weird. But she was watching a video of me, and then she paused the video and she turned to me and said, "Dad, I love the flipped classroom." I said, "How come?" She says, "Because I get to pause you." Which was kind of, I said, wait, no, actually it was good, and she was saying it nicely, but I think it was funny that she gets to pause her dad. She wanted to pause and rewind her dad because she needed help. Now, I will give you a couple pieces of advice too, to those of you who are considering flipping your class. It's very important, maybe the biggest mistake, I see teachers make is they don't teach their students how to watch the videos. They just say, well, I'm going to say, watch this video and then come to class. No, you must teach them how to watch the video. What do I mean by that? Well, students know how to watch Spider-Man. That doesn't mean they know how to watch an instructional video on, say, math or PE or whatever it might be. Take some time to teach them how to interact with the video. So for me as a high school teacher, I spent a week teaching my students how to watch the videos. The first day we watched it on the big screen, the next day on devices. I essentially was teaching them how to take notes. I was in a 6th grade class recently in Fort Worth, Texas area, and I had a chance to talk with this teacher. And as we were talking about how he set his students up to prepare, he spent 3 weeks teaching his kids how to watch videos. I had little guys, I had bigger guys. I think it makes sense. So make sure that you take time to teach your students how to watch instructional video content. Otherwise, they're going to go home and they may watch it, but that doesn't mean they're going to actually get things out of it. And the second thing I would say about the video content, make sure that you build in some interactivity. Pause, write questions, take notes. There's lots of ways to build in interactivity, but if you don't build in the interactivity, then it won't work. I'll also tell you about a couple of resources for you. Aaron Sampson and I have co-written 2 books. The first one, Flip Your Classroom, where it introduces the idea of the flipped classroom and also the flipped mastery model, where students work asynchronously through content. And I really believe the flipped mastery classroom is very, very powerful. And then just this week, we've released a second book called Flipped Learning, Gateway to Student Engagement. This book tells the stories of teachers who've moved really beyond the flipped classroom. They started with the flipped classroom, and they've moved beyond to a second version, or a second iteration, if you will, that we like to call flipped learning. Flipped learning is the advanced version of the flipped class, if you will. And this book takes you through those teachers and their stories as we learn from them about how they have really transformed their class from a more, teacher-centered classroom into a learner-centered classroom of the future.
That was short, but there was a lot of really important points in there that I want to draw your attention to. So, teaching your kids how to watch the videos, you really, really, really have to do that. Because otherwise they kind of go home and they watch through it and they come into class and it's like they haven't watched it at all. And you'll say, "Did you watch the video?" And they're like, "Yup." Okay, so then why aren't you getting this concept? Like, why didn't you get the fact that you were supposed to come into the room quietly? Because that's what the video told you to do. So you do need to do that. And when you're working with younger kids, you can do what they call in-class flipping. And so you basically have it as a station within your classroom, rather than them doing it at home. The other thing with the, that he was saying, oh no, I don't think he said it in that one. Time is really important. 2 minutes per grade level, maximum. Because the longer you talk for, the less they're going to take in. And chances are, you're actually putting multiple concepts in the same video, which you can't do. You need separate videos for that. Okay, yes? So instead of the students watching the video at home, so like with grade 2s or 3s or whatever, they would actually do it in class.
As in together?
I always start off with, so when I'm demonstrating to my students how to watch a video, we start like this. And so I go through and I create my video the same way I would, but in class it's like, okay, we're gonna pretend you're at home. Here's how we're gonna do. And I go through it and I pause it at various points and we talk about it. It's like, oh, did you get that important point? What was that important point? Who's got a question right now? You need to write your question down so you can bring it to class tomorrow. So it's things like that that we go through. And then once we've done that a few times, then they're ready to be able to do it on their own.
And what's the station?
So stations, like with classroom teachers, they'll often set up station rotations. So it's like, if you're at this station, then you're doing something with the blocks. If you're at that station, you're going to be doing a different activity. So it's like different activities set up around the room. That would be one of your stations.
Also, the flipping will be here, and then the instruction would be to, go to stations and do, play your instruments or something.
It depends on what you've decided to flip and what your concept is.
Okay.
So the benefits of flipping, kids can rewatch it. They can pause things when it's like, oh, I don't think I understood that. They can pause the video, they can go back a few seconds, rewatch it, or they can write down what it was that they're having issues with. They can learn anywhere. In a hospital, in a cafe, in an airport, in a car. Like, as long as they've got an internet connection, they can stream that video. It doesn't need to be at home. It doesn't need to be in your classroom. It really takes care of the bottom 2 tiers of blooms and lets you do much more of the analyzing and applying in class, because you're not having to do as much. You still need to teach stuff. You may still need to teach that concept, but where you would have gone over it 3 and 4 times in class before, now maybe you're only going over it once or twice. And it actually gives you a better relationship with your students. So, because I make all of my videos, and this is part of the philosophy, it's not using somebody else's videos, you create your own. When you're creating your own, your kids are interacting with you. You're not interacting with them as much, but they're interacting with you. They're seeing your personality. Your personality is coming through. I've had students in other grade levels come to me and tell me how they watched a certain video. I'm like, that wasn't for your class. They're like, yeah, I know, but I just like watching your videos. My current grade 6s, they've known me for 6 weeks. They're now obsessed with my subscriber count. And they're going around and asking other students in the school if those students have subscribed to my channel yet. They're also wondering why YouTube doesn't pay me for my videos. But I was like, yeah, guys, it doesn't actually work like that, but thanks for the compliment. So, how are your relationships better? Well, they get to see you being silly. They get to see that personality. You're spending more time with them, interacting with them during class. So rather than me sitting there going, Leo, eyes here. Ian, put that down. We're able just to do the fun stuff, or what they consider to be the fun stuff. And I'm not having to do as much direct instruction. I'm not having to do as much classroom management because they're bored because I've been spending the last 10 minutes talking. So how do I do it? I use the free tools that come with my devices. Step 1, I'm using QuickTime to record my lesson. whatever that is. And it's not a full lesson. I'm saying lesson, but I'm recording a particular concept.
Is that from your MacBook?
QuickTime? Yeah, QuickTime comes on the MacBook, and it's the same as using I've used just the record feature on my phone. So open up the camera, hit video, set myself up. Some of my videos I do in class. Others I have done as if I have a class, but not actually. So almost all of my recordings I do in my classroom. Some I've done at home, but almost all of them are in my classroom. And some I just pretend I've got students in front of me. Others I really do have students in front of me. And on occasion, I actually have the kid holding the camera. But students never appear in my videos. So that's important as well. Yeah. I edit in iMovie because, again, it's free, it's included, it's pretty easy to do. And then I upload it to YouTube. There were a few things that I made that for some reason I couldn't upload to YouTube. I don't remember what those were. It was several years ago. So I just put them on our school LMS. We were using Moodle at the time. So I just uploaded them right onto Moodle, and the kids were able to watch it there. So there's different ways you can do that. Okay, I embedded them on my website as well. So on my class site, we've got a Google site. I've started embedding onto there. It takes me about 30 minutes to do that process.
Do all your students have VPNs at home?
Well, I'm in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I don't think.
So this is why if you were, so if you're here,
Yes.
I wouldn't be saying upload to YouTube, I'm saying upload to your LMS.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're using Schoology or Moodle or whatever you're using here, that's what you would upload to. Taking it to the next level, you can do multi-angle shots. And I only just started doing that in the last year, where I would actually set up 2 devices at the same time. I'd have my MacBook and my iPad, or my phone and my iPad, or something like that. And basically it's click record, and then I just kind of stand there and freeze. So I give myself a point that I can trim to, and then I launch into it. And then in the editing process, I can do picture-in-picture, I can do side-by-side, I can do the cutaway, so it's goes from one to the other and back again. So there's different things that I can do with that. I didn't start out there. I did a lot of videos before I started doing that extra one. And each time you make it a little bit more complex, you kind of reset the clock, and you can no longer whip it out in 30 minutes. You've got to, get used to that new workflow again. The other thing that I started doing, not on every video, is that I would do separate audio and video. So sometimes I would actually write out a script if there was things that I was gotta remember this, gotta remember this, gotta remember this. And I would record a script on GarageBand. And then I would do my video footage in QuickTime. Any questions so far?
How did you learn to do all this techie stuff?
Trial and error. It was one of those things where it's I've got a problem and I need to find a solution. So it's just, the first time I made a flip video, I think it took me 2 hours because I had nobody guiding me, I had nobody assisting me. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to use iMovie. I could hit record on my camera. I knew a little bit about using the camera in QuickTime to record things, but in terms of doing screencasts or anything like that, I have no idea how to do this. So pretty much every single step, I was Googling how to do it. And some of those videos are really rough. But it kind of got me started, and as with everything, the more you do it, the more you practice it. So some of the things that I've made videos for are simple procedural things. Here's how you wrap up the headphones. So that screenshot of me being really silly, that one, I'm teaching the kids how to roll headphones cords, because my grade 5s would just kind of scrunch it into their hand and be like, it's rolled up, and dump it into the box. At which point it gets tangled with the other 25 pairs of headphones that are in there. So there's that. I know a visual arts teacher who has made a little video about how to clean the paintbrushes. Like, it doesn't need to be a big lesson. It doesn't have to be a massive concept. You're not needing to teach, Newton's theory of gravity and relativity, and it doesn't have to be that big. It can be something really simple. It could be how we order our classroom library. You make your little video, you make a little QR code, you put the QR code on the bookshelf, done. So I've got a bunch of procedural items. Here's how we get the xylophones off the shelf. Here's how we carefully walk across the room with the xylophones. We never step over the xylophone. We always walk around the xylophone. It's things like that, especially when I've got new students coming in, I can kind of be like, I want you to watch this, and I'm going to get everybody else set up, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to have a little chat, and things like that. Oops. Okay. So, if you really want to do this on your own, you can, but I would recommend that for today, you work in groups of 2 or 3, and you kind of work with somebody who's doing similar age levels, or subject level, either one works. So, but what you're going to do is choose a lesson, concept, really, and definitely go for something that's familiar, go for something that's easy. Don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're really stuck, teach basic math. Here's how we're going to do addition. Here's how we're going to tidy up our classroom, something like that. So you and your partner are going to write out an outline. What's the main point of this lesson? What kind of activities would you be doing in class? What kind of information are they needing to know? That sort of thing. And then you're going to pick, what is it that we're going to make that video on? Is it going to be a set of instructions? Is it going to be a teaching concept? What's it going to be? And then we're going to get into the actual recording. Okay? So find yourself, partner or group, and start brainstorming. Go.
Does anyone teach grade 5 or around grade 5?
I don't want to do this. It's not, I think it should just be one.
You've got 2 minutes left on your planning, and then we're moving into the recording.
For both of us, we're trying to get it into like a step by step, right? But we don't really know where your student is struggling at each point. It is up to you.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, even though AirDrop hasn't quite finished for you guys, I'm going to go on, and then, well, once we actually have video to do, then we can go into it. So like I said, I'm going to go through this using iMovie, but no matter what video editing program you choose, the majority of them have similar features. So within iMovie, you're going to create a new project, and it's simple. It's the big plus button. And it gives you a choice of either a movie or a trailer.
How to, like,
it's like if I click on it, like this thing just moves.
Right, and it's a clip, it deletes.
Oh, 'cause we gotta edit.
I'm
See
like,
what
if you
I'm
like
doing.
something to like, you know, when I made a mistake, you can just.
Okay, so
and
has
then you can select
everybody
those, you can-
looked at the different transitions and stuff that you can get? Alright, so after you finished exploring a little bit, then you're gonna drag and drop your footage in.
Yeah.
Super simple to do. And it says even like where you're gonna put it. If you had separate audio and video, your audio goes underneath your video and it shows up as a different color. So then, the first thing you wanna do is watch your footage right through, okay? And then, without actually deleting anything yet, but as you're watching, you're gonna use what's called split clip to help cut out the unwanted footage or to add transition points. So there's, in my videos, sometimes there's places where I pause a little bit. I'll make that a transition to help break things up and it's not just talking head. And so you can find that in your modify menu, okay? Or you can use Command B, which makes no sense whatsoever because it's called split clip and there's no B's whatsoever, but that's what it is. And so once you start getting better at it, it's as you're going through, so you're watching, you'll be like, oh, that's the beginning of a part I know I want to delete. So the beginning of the part you know you're going to want to delete, Command B. Keep on watching, find the end point, Command B. Keep on watching, don't go back and delete yet. Keep on watching because it could be that you actually need a little bit of that footage at some other point. So that's why you're not going to delete anything yet. But you do go through and have your split clips and then we'll go through and delete. Okay?
So you're like marking it kind of.
So yeah, exactly. It's kind of like putting in marker points. So go ahead, watch through your footage, Command B your way through it. So once you've done your splitting,
Yeah.
then I'm going to go through these next couple slides together and then let you guys work for a few minutes. So once you've gone through, then you want to adjust cropping, colors, audio. Okay, so when you get into your cropping, so that's going to be on the right side of your screen, and it's this little crop tool, same as it would be in photos. You can do a fit, a crop to fill, or the Ken Burns effect. Does everybody know what the Ken Burns effect is?
Yeah, moves it like it's like.
Yeah, so
transition.
Ken Burns does like this little panning thing, which can be good. You can control, so you guys were doing that book thing, it could start zoomed in on a book and then pull out, or start pulled out and then zoom in. It's that kind of a thing, and you can control that. So these things, this is what you're working on next. Then you add your transitions and your backgrounds, and you're just dragging and dropping from the top to wherever you want it to be. This is also the point if you had a second layer of footage. Okay, you're adding all of this stuff in. So yeah, your next level, if you have your multi-camera, you're dragging and dropping the extra footage above the current footage, and then you need to select the type of overlay. So once you've got the two in there, this extra icon appears. So it recognizes that it has two sets of footage, and you can choose, I want it to be a cutaway, so it jumps between them. I want it to be like a green screen, blue screen thing, so where it takes one person out and overlays something else. Split screen, you can choose whether it's going to be on the left side or the right side, and the picture in picture. And again, it gives you all of these different controls.
We just need to find a place to like, oh, sorry. Oh no, because we have the sound on. What-
So take 5 minutes and edit.
Sounds.
Remember, if you slow things down, that slows down your audio.
I think Chinese schools have a challenge in general of understanding the purpose of studying
Oh.
So right now you have
do
clips.
those.
Like, the only
You
reason
have
why
like
they
parts
told
of
me.
This one
because
is the one that needs clips.
like staffing
This is
spaces
the one that
need
needs
to be big in our
clips,
school,
because
that
this
she's
is fast.
rusty and out.
How do we take off Command
At the
B?
end of the day, it's all
I guess it's just
about.
gonna
Go back to
Undo.
join clip, so you have to go to where it is and then join in. Or select, sorry, select both sides and join clip.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move on, just trying to be mindful of time. So once you've finished your editing process, your next step is to share it out. So if you are brave and fearless, and you're willing to put your video out there for the world to see, then yes, YouTube is definitely an option, and it's super simple, and you can do it right from iMovie, no problem. If though, you've got kids in that video, you know, they can't be public, or if it's something that the rest of the world has absolutely no use for, like the current sub day, things like that, then you could also share it out just as a file. And it just saves it as a file to your laptop, and then you can send it to wherever. So you do that. And then you could also use supplemental tools. You can take this to the next level. So you can use things, you can embed it in things like Nearpod, you can embed it in things like Pear Deck. You could be using, Edpuzzle is great as well. You can't embed a video in Quizlet, but you could actually send kids to do a Quizlet activity after they've watched your video as like a check-in point. So there's a whole bunch of tools that you can use. One of the things, the philosophy of flipping is that it's never just watch the video. There's always something that follows that. There's always a check-in point. There's always something that they're supposed to be doing or thinking about. Personally, I'm very bad with that because a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm wanting to do with them in class. I'm wanting them to come in and play on the instruments or something like that. So it's not so much a digital activity, but it'll be something where I say, okay, well, you're gonna watch this video and I'm gonna ask you 3 questions about it when you come in tomorrow, or I want you to bring in 2 questions of things that you thought about while you were watching the video. That's backfired a couple times with the younger kids where they come in with very random questions that have nothing to do with the video. You know, it'll be things like, why does my house smell? Or something like that. But you know, that's what happens when you teach younger ones. So we do have about 10 minutes left, and I will let you guys continue editing, but are there questions at this point? Yeah. This is really something that you can't do in a rush. You do have to do over and over and over again before it becomes easy. And yeah, there's lots of help online. And we're on teachingrude.com. There is a whole flipped learning section. Under the research tab, there's a whole flipped learning section, and we did do a podcast on it a couple years ago. So there are resources out there if you're interested in taking it to a next level or a more official level. But certainly this is something that can be great just for classroom procedure things or sub days or stuff like that. So thank you very much for coming. Do let me know if you have any other questions, and you've got 10 minutes to finish your edit.
Thank you so much.
Maybe what we should do first is cut out the part that's the mistake, and then if we can figure out how to, maybe just forget